Hello and welcome to the video. Today we'll be taking a look at exposure and its many functionalities and applications. Now exposure is broken down into three main subcategories, being aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. In this video you will learn how to balance the three to make the perfect looking shot for your video piece. See that opening in the middle of the lens there? That is what's known as the iris opening or aperture opening. It is controlled by 5 blades inside of the camera and come together to make a pentagonal hole. The size of the hole is represented by a number known as an f-stop. The bigger the f-stop number, the smaller the hole will be. So you really got to think in opposites when you're thinking about aperture. So for instance, a big hole will be represented by a small number, and vice versa. The real purpose of aperture is to control how much amount of light comes into your camera and is absorbed by the sensor. Obviously, the bigger the hole, the more amount of light is let in. An example of a wide aperture that lets in a lot of light is f-stop 1.8. Most modern lenses today are categorized by the lowest f-stop number it can reach. Lenses with the capability of going to a very wide aperture or low f-stop generally are more sought after and can oftentimes be more expensive. Aperture can also control what is known as depth of field. Depth of field is a name for how much of your shot is in focus. For example, in a shallow depth of field, generally only one thing is in focus, leaving the background in a blur. This effect, where the background is blurred, is known as bokeh, which comes from the Japanese word that translates in English to blur or haze. The shallow depth of field and bokeh effect generally make the shot more aesthetically pleasing. However, when bokeh is overused, it can sometimes become a distraction. When your aperture is set to a low f-stop or a wide opening, a shallow depth of field is created and less of the image will be in focus. However, when the aperture is set to a high f-stop and the opening becomes smaller, more of the image will be in focus. The next component of exposure is known as shutter speed. Shutter speed controls how long each frame in your video is exposed to the outside light. Shutter speed is measured in fractions of 1 whole second. So the longer the shutter speed, the more light will be let in, creating a brighter image. The base shutter speed for most videos lies around 1/63 of a second. Shutter speed should generally be set so it doubles the overall frame rate of the shot to avoid distortion and other problems. So for instance, if you're shooting a video at 60 frames per second, the shutter speed should be set to somewhere around 1/120th of a second. As you can see here, as I adjust the shutter speed to be shorter, it also darkens the image, thus creating a darker shot. So right now I'm at 1/68th of a second, and now I'm moving up to 1/74th, as you can see a visible change, 1/81st, 1/88th, 1/96th, 1/110th, 1/120th, 1/130th, 1/140th, 1/150th, 1/160th, and so on. You can see the image gets progressively darker, and on most cameras it will usually go up to about 1/4000th of a second. ISO, or as some pronounce it, ISO, is a digital way to compensate for the darkness or brightness of your shot. ISO is represented by whole numbers ranging on most cameras from 100 to 6400. The higher the ISO number, the brighter the shot will be. So if you wanted a large depth of field and were shooting in a low light situation, you could use a large ISO to brighten up the image. One of the biggest drawbacks to high ISO is the noise or graininess it introduces to the shot when used. A lot of noisiness and grain can lead to unusable shots, so when selecting an ISO, it is best to keep it to the smaller numbers ranging around 100 to 1600. As you can see on screen now, as I adjust the ISO, the shot will get lighter and darker. So right now I'm at an 800 ISO, and I'm going to bring it down right now to a 640 ISO. So now if I bring it down to a 400 ISO, you can see the shot's getting visibly darker. So now I'm at 320, 200, 160, 100, and now I put it back to auto mode, which will automatically adjust my ISO to fit my shot the best, or the way it thinks it's the best. So now I'm going to bring up the ISO and show you, I'll show you an example of some grain or color that can be in the shot if you use too high of an ISO. Now as you can see right there, that is a high ISO, and I'm just going to compensate that with a large depth of field. And as you can see, towards the middle of the lens, you can see that little speck of movement or color, that is what's called noise or grain, and that is a bad thing when it's coming to video, and it can obviously, like I said, lead to unusable shots, and it just doesn't look quite as good as when you have a lower ISO. So that pretty much wraps it up for today. You now should have an understanding of exposure, its features, and its mechanics. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a nice day.